Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. A huge shout out to the God of War and Uncharted channel members. And if you enjoyed today's video, please show your support by hitting that like button. So we're starting off with a game that has had a lot of requests for a proper PS5 Pro patch, and that is Silent Hill 2. So the developers at Bloober Team recently confirmed that they're still working on a performance improvement patch for the PlayStation 5 version of the game. This comes as a relief to many players who had assumed that support had been dropped after the last patch failed to fix several lingering technical problems. Now, Bloober Team have shared that they're actively collaborating with Sony and PlayStation to develop a solution. While they haven't revealed exactly what changes are coming or when we can expect them, the team assured fans that more details would be shared soon. Now, Silent Hill 2 Remake launched back in October 2024 for PlayStation 5 and PC. It quickly gained attention not only for revisiting one of the most iconic horror games of the early 2000s, but also for making meaningful additions and improvements to the game. The remake has added brand new areas, modernized cutscenes, and redesigned classic locations like Brookhaven Hospital and the Lakeview Hotel. These places now feature more complex and layered puzzles that even longtime fans of the original won't recognize immediately. The game's changes don't just stop at visuals or gameplay tweaks. The original title, which released back in 2001 for the PlayStation 2, often had single major puzzles per area. In contrast, the remake breaks those down into smaller, interconnected puzzles, enhancing the sense of discovery and challenge. These thoughtful additions, along with updated controls and visuals, have helped the game reach over 2 million copies sold as of January 2025. And while the technical problems on the PlayStation 5 Pro have been quite frustrating at times, it's clear that the developers haven't abandoned the project just yet. Which is great news that we're going to get an enhanced and improved working PS5 Pro patch finally for Silent Hill 2. But the question everyone is still asking is, when are we going to get it? Let me know in the comments when you think we will get this PlayStation 5 Pro patch, which actually works and improves the performance of the game on the PS5 Pro. Now, let's move on, as it looks like Microsoft is taking a step back from hardware for now anyway. According to a recent report from Windows Central, Microsoft has decided to temporarily, I say that with inverted commas, pause development on its own Xbox branded handheld device. Now, this device was expected to launch alongside the next generation Xbox console, possibly 2027, but plans have now changed. The reason for the so-called pause is that Microsoft wants to improve how Windows 11 performs on handheld gaming systems before committing to building new hardware. Well, that's what they say, which, let's be honest, makes sense, right? You want to make sure the systems are in place, they work properly before you start launching hardware. So in principle, that sounds credible, but Microsoft has no credibility with stuff like this. They've backtracked so many times before in the past, it's difficult to believe what they say. Currently, Windows handhelds are lagging behind competitors like Steam Deck, which uses the Steam OS and offers a smoother, more optimized experience for portable gaming. By fixing Windows 11's performance issues first, Microsoft hopes to create a better foundation for future handheld devices. It's important to note that this pause only applies to Microsoft's own handheld. Other companies like Asus are still moving forward with their third-party devices, including a new handheld expected to debut in late 2025. Another device that's been in the news circles is Project Keenan. Earlier this month, a leaked image surfaced hinting at the existence of this device, Project Keenan. While details are still unclear, rumors suggest it might feature AMD's new Ryzen Z2 Extreme chip, offering more power than previously expected. Earlier leaks pointed to a 4-core CPU, 16GB of RAM, and up to 20 watts of power draw, but these specs could change as development continues. And after all, this is just a leak, a rumored leak, right? So we don't know the internals, as it were. There's also a possibility that we'll hear more about this device or Microsoft's handheld plans in general at the upcoming Xbox Game Showcase scheduled for June the 8th. Even if hardware isn't mentioned, the showcase promises lots of exciting game announcements and trailers, especially if you're interested in the games coming to PlayStation, because we know there will be a ton of games heading over to PlayStation announced at the Microsoft event. With regards to the handheld, and while Microsoft's excuse of delaying the handheld is plausible, like I said, it could be true, part of me cannot help but think this is an excuse, like a soundbite to stop Xbox gamers getting upset. I still remember when Phil Spencer announced there were only 4 games going to PlayStation from Xbox and then backtracked with excuse after excuse that it worked and that experiment went well. Why wouldn't we move all of our games over, and yada yada yada. So I wonder if they have had second thoughts on the hardware side of things and have decided actually it's more economical for Microsoft to stop all hardware and just focus on the software. After all, they are a software business, right? Anyway, time will tell, but let me know what you make of this in the comments, and let's move on. From Software's latest release, Elden Ring Nightreign has made a solid debut on Steam, even though reviews from players are mixed right now. According to data from SteamDB, the game peaked at over 313,000 concurrent players in just 1 hour after launch. That's a massive number for a game launch and marks Nightreign as From Software's second biggest Steam release ever, only behind the original Elden Ring game, which topped out at a massive 953,000 concurrent players, just shy of 1 million concurrent players, which is phenomenal. This new title focuses heavily on co-op gameplay, and while it can be played solo, Nightreign is designed around 3-player co-op sessions. This likely helped push up its concurrent user numbers, since most players are joining with 2 other people per session. Despite the strong start, the game hasn't won over everyone though. As of now, it holds a mixed rating on Steam. Out of more than 10,000 user reviews, roughly 1/3 are negative. Many of the complaints center around the lack of a 2-player option. Players either go solo or have to form a group of 3. Some users also say the experience feels a little bit hollow without teammates and voice chat, which the game doesn't integrate as smoothly as it could have. Others have pointed out technical issues and say that the game lacks the depth that fans have expected from a From Software title. Some of this criticism stems from the game's roguelike design, which is different from the more open world and story-driven approach seen in the original Elden Ring game. Performance problems on high-end PCs have also been flagged. In a recent patch note, From Software acknowledged that users with powerful graphics cards were experiencing frame rate drops. They suggested that players try lowering graphics settings and screen resolution and make sure their GPU drivers are up to date while they work on a fix. Still, the game is just getting started, and From Software has a history of refining their games post-launch. Time will tell whether Nightreign can overcome its rocky start and carve out its own place within the studio's legendary lineup of games. Are you playing Nightreign right now? I'm giving this a miss, if I'm honest with you. I don't really like the online multiplayer elements, so I'll give this a miss for now. I may come back to it in the future, but let me know your thoughts in the comments about whether you plan on playing Nightreign, and if you are playing it, let me know how you're getting on. Moving on to a divisive subject. Are game subscription services hurting smaller developers? Because in recent years, subscription-based gaming services like Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus have grown rapidly, and they've got massive numbers of users, and it's changing how players access and play video games on these systems. But not everyone is sold on this change, especially when it comes to how it affects smaller studios. The former head of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Shuhei Yoshida, recently shared some thoughts on the subject during an interview with game developer at Gamescom. While he acknowledged that subscription services have some clear benefits within the industry, especially for those developers who get their games included into the services, he also raised serious concerns about what this trend could mean for the broader industry. Yoshida pointed out that these services can create what he described as walled gardens, where only certain games are allowed in. For indie developers and smaller studios who don't get that kind of support or exposure, it could become increasingly difficult to reach an audience. He warned that if subscription platforms become the only way most players access these games, then the people running those services might end up controlling which types of games get made, which is a very, very true point. If the only way people play these indie games and smaller games is through a subscription service, that's dangerous, Yoshida explained, because the kind of games that get developed will be shaped by the people who run and gate those services. And that could really hold back creativity in the industry. If you controlled a subscription service and you wanted to only encourage games that allowed for microtransactions, let's say, for example, and the only games you allowed into those subscription services were games that had transactions, then it creates a problem, right? It creates a problem with creativity and the types of games that those subscription services have in their libraries. Yoshida went on to explain and emphasize how important it is for small studios to be able to try new ideas, experiments that might not always make money, but can lead to the next big innovation within the gaming industry. And this is a particularly relevant point when you look at how big publishers are increasingly shaping the direction of game development. If the major subscription services focus mainly on high budget, high revenue titles, then unique, niche or experimental games could get squeezed out. Yoshida also compared Sony's approach to subscriptions with Microsoft's, and he argued that the Sony model, where most new games are sold outright first and only added to a subscription catalog later, is a healthier model for consoles. This gives developers time to earn back their investment at full price, while eventually allowing access to more players further down the line. He noted that over time, as sales of a game start to slow down, it's natural to add it to services like PlayStation Plus. That way, the title gets a second life and may even help generate interest for sequels or follow-up content. In contrast, Microsoft's strategy of releasing first-party games on Game Pass the same day they launch in stores might undermine that initial sales window, especially for third-party studios. Yoshida's comments come at a time when many players are turning to subscription services as a more affordable way to enjoy a variety of games rather than buying them individually at full price. And from a consumer perspective, that kind of makes sense. Why pay full price for one game when you can access dozens for a monthly fee? But you know, there is something about collecting games, there is something about owning your games, and no matter how many subscription services you sign up to, those subscription services will never give you that feeling. And like I said, at the end of the day, a lot of it is about game ownership, right? But from a developer's perspective and from a developer's point of view, especially for those not backed by major publishers, the economics can get tricky. If people stop buying games outright and instead just subscribe, then how are smaller studios supposed to make enough money to stay afloat or take risks? In simple terms, while subscription services have opened up access to more games for people, they might also be making it harder for new voices in the industry to break through. It's a balancing act, and one that game companies, developers and players will need to think about carefully as the industry continues to evolve. What are your thoughts, guys? What are your thoughts on subscription services? Let me know in the comments. I know we've discussed this on several occasions before, but feel free to let me know your comments down below. And let's move on to some very good news if you're a fan of The Witcher 3. CD Projekt Red has made a surprise announcement 10 years after the game had come out. So as part of the 10th anniversary celebration of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, they've confirmed that one final update is on the way for the game later this year, and it's a big one, especially for players on current generation consoles. This upcoming patch will finally introduce mod support for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox versions of the game. Until now, modding was something mostly limited to PC players, but this new update is going to change that. CD Projekt Red is partnering with mod.io, a platform that helps bring mod support across multiple systems. That means modders will now have a shared ecosystem where mods can be uploaded, downloaded and enjoyed across PC, PlayStation 5 and Xbox consoles. It's a big step forward for accessibility, especially for console players who've been watching PC players enjoy community-created content for many years. Whether it's cosmetic changes, gameplay tweaks, or full-blown quest overhauls, mods can completely refresh a game like The Witcher 3 and keep it feeling new. However, there are a few things to bear in mind. First of all, this new feature will not be coming to the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One versions of the game. This patch is strictly for the current generation platforms, that's PlayStation 5, Xbox Series S and X, and of course PC. That's likely due to the hardware limitations of last generation consoles and the increased complexity of mod support. Another thing CD Projekt Red mentioned is that not every PC mod will automatically be available on consoles. So mods shared through this cross-platform system will still have to meet certain content guidelines and pass a review process. So if you're using a console, you might see a smaller selection of mods compared to what's available on PC. And if you're planning to make your own mods, you'll need to do it on a PC. Console players can only download and use them, not create or upload them. So if you want to create new mods for the game, you're going to have to do that on PC. In their announcement, the team at CD Projekt Red thanked fans for supporting the game over the last decade. They said more details about the patch will be shared closer to its release, so we should expect further updates down the line. All in all, this is a really exciting move for the Witcher community. It brings the game in line with other major titles that support modding on console and shows that CD Projekt Red is still committed to improving The Witcher 3 even 10 years after launch. It's not often you see a developer come back to a game this far down the road with meaningful new content. Let me know in the comments down below, guys, what kind of mods you're hoping to see when this feature goes live for The Witcher 3. Now let's move on to a studio where the head of that studio is having to make a groveling apology. Borderlands 4 right? The next big entry in the long-running shooter series has been making the headlines, and it has been doing this for a couple of weeks, but not for gameplay reveals or release dates. It's because of the confusion around its potential price tag. Recently, Randy Pitchford, the head of Gearbox and a key figure behind the Borderlands franchise, he stirred up controversy with comments suggesting that real fans would be willing to pay £80 to play the game. Real fans. Unsurprisingly, many people online didn't take kindly to that statement. In response to the backlash, Pitchford published a lengthy post trying to explain himself. And when I say lengthy, I mean lengthy. It's over 500 words of explanations, reflection, and backtracking. And to be clear, Pitchford didn't directly apologize for what he said during his 500-word explanation. Instead, he expressed regret that his words may have come across poorly. He emphasized that he doesn't want anyone to feel forced into paying more than what they think the game is worth. According to him, his goal is to make sure players always feel like they're getting a good deal regardless of what they pay. Pitchford acknowledged that his earlier comments might have made it seem like he was taking fans for granted. He called that a super crappy look and stressed that he genuinely appreciates the support the community has shown over the years. He says that, "I'm grateful that anyone likes our games, and I don't want pricing to get in the way of people enjoying them." He added that as a creative person, his hopes is to reach as many players as possible, not to make games inaccessible due to high prices. Still, he admitted that rising development costs and inflation are pushing game prices across the industry. That's not just a Gearbox issue, it's a trend affecting pretty much every big studio out there. Sooner or later, players and developers alike will need to adjust to these new realities, even though it's a tough pill to swallow. Despite the attempt to clarify, the controversy shows just how sensitive pricing has become in the gaming industry. While AAA titles now regularly cost £70 or more, and with many players already subscribed to services like Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, it's no surprise that people are questioning how much they're willing or able to spend on a single game. At this point, Borderlands 4 still doesn't have an official price tag. Pitchford made it clear that pricing is not entirely up to him, as that decision ultimately falls to the publisher and broader market forces. But his comments have already shaped how some fans are viewing the game even before it hits store shelves. For now, it's a waiting game, but the debate around Borderlands 4's pricing is part of a much larger conversation about the value in modern gaming. One that's not only going to get more complicated as prices rise and player expectations grow. Look, my view on this is I take a look at Expedition 33. As a decent sized game made by a relatively small studio, it's priced at £45 in the UK. I look at Mind's Eye, which is being made by a new studio of experienced developers. That's priced at between £49.99 and £55 in the UK. And I take a look at Mafia, The Old Country, which is coming in at £38 in the UK. Now, all of those three games for me are priced beautifully. They hit a sweet spot for several reasons. Even if I'm unsure about the game, like Mind's Eye, for example, right? It's had mixed reviews and mixed reports. I'm going to give it a go. I like what I see, but because the price is at a decent level, I'm quite happy to dive in and give it a shot. Even though Expedition 33 is a turn-based game, and I don't usually play those games, and I haven't played it yet, but I am going to give it a try because of what people have said, and they're saying it's going to be Game of the Year, right? I'm prepared to give it a try because the price is right. And the Mafia, well, that's just an unbelievable price. And yes, the game may be a single-player, linear, story-driven game, and it could be anywhere between 15 to 30 hours long. We don't know yet because we don't have that data, but I can live with that given the price. Borderlands being £70 or £80 for me personally is too much. I couldn't justify that kind of money on this kind of game. Even though I might be mildly interested in it, I'm just going to have to wait until it hits at least half price. Guys, what are your thoughts on the groveling so-called apology by studio head and the pricing of not just Borderlands, but gaming in general? Let me know your thoughts in the comments about the content discussed in the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.